All right, we are live, everyone. Welcome back to another incredible episode of Coach Magic. I am so excited for this conversation. It's hard to even hide my excitement because it's going to be amazing. Let me tell you who we have as our guest today, the incredible Steph Paynes. Steph and I met in a yoga class because you meet the best people in yoga. Let's be real, right, Steph? Steph is the founder
in yoga, just to say.
Yes.
I did it.
Yeah, totally. We clean up nice. We clean up when we're not all sweaty. Steph is the founder and lead guitarist of the New York City-based all-girl quartet Lez Zeppelin. She started the group in 2004 after touring as a Ronette. Steph, I have to tell my mother because she is such a fan of Ronnie Spector. The first bad girl of rock and roll, Ronnie Spector.
That's exactly who she was.
Absolutely. I can't wait to hear stories about that. Steph's originally from New York. She now splits her time between the amazing Berkshires, where we both live, and London. She's a Brown graduate, and before donning the white satin dragon suit, she worked as a freelance writer, novelist, and music journalist. Her stories and reviews have appeared in some of the top publications: Rolling Stone, The NME, Musician, Guitar Player, and Playboy. She has shared the stage with Joey Ramone, Keith Richards, and Chuck Berry, and has had the unique pleasure of dining on ham sandwiches with Frank Zappa at the Waldorf Astoria, as one does. Welcome to the show, Steph.
Yes, very common experience. Practically everyone I meet has done that. No.
Wow.
Pleasure to be here, Jenny. Really.
Oh my gosh, what a ride. What a ride. And so you're in the Berkshires right now, or are you in the Berkshires? Yeah.
Yes, I am.
You are in the
lovely getaway retreat, as it were. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. We live in this very special place. And okay, so you've had quite a ride. You have quite a ride. I want to know, did you always love music? Was music the thing that you discovered as a kid? How did you figure this part out of your life?
Yeah, I was enamored of music my whole life. I mean, there was a lot of music in my family. It was mostly classical music. My parents listened to a lot of music. My younger brother, is a violinist. And so there was a lot of that, and a very serious player at that time. So, and I asked for a guitar at 5. So I just, it was like I saw the bands from England and the States, and I saw them on TV and whatever, and I got the disease, and my parents gave me a guitar at 6, and I played it for a little while. Then I shoved it under the piano, and then a few years later, about 8, 9, I took it out, and it's never been back under the piano since.
Whoa. So that's incredible. Way to go for them for getting you the guitar, and you just knew it. You felt it. Okay, so you went to Brown. What did you study when you were in school?
So I studied international relations, and I did a lot of writing. So I sort of wasn't really a minor, but I did sort of fiction writing, and but mostly international relations because it was multi sort of subject, and I was really interested in it. I was super interested in. I'd worked in Washington for a couple of summers, and I just found the whole thing fascinating. It was, so yeah.
You found like kind of government and international relations working in Washington. That was your fascination. What was so fascinating about it?
I think it's one of those things. It's you're either kind of a politico, or you're into what's happening in the world, or you're not.
Okay.
Sometimes you start that way and then you leave it. Probably a lot of people now. But I ended up sort of working in a congressional office when I was in high school during the summers, and I just loved it. I mean, I just found it to be exciting. I found that, look, it is what it is, but you can also do a lot. And there was a lot of amazing, things being done. And my congressman was writing bills, and I got to research stuff. And, you really feel that, you're empowered to do something, if you can exist and work in that swampy climate, as it were. Literally and figuratively, it is swampy.
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in the summer. But so it sort of carried on, and I ended up studying it at school, and I'm still interested in it. So
Yeah, you and I had a little conversation about that in yoga. Just yes, there's a lot happening. This is definitely a time if you're interested. Like, oh, it's interesting. It's interesting what's happening. Okay, so you mentioned doing a lot of writing too, and I know that was what you did earlier on in your career. How did you then shift from international relations to writing for some of these music publications?
that's a sort of a long story, but writing as well is something I did sort of naturally. Let's just say I had a compulsion to write since I was very young, like
Okay.
7, 6. I don't know. I had diaries throughout my whole life, and I always loved to write. And my mother was an English professor, and my dad was a publisher, so there was a lot of that as well. And I had a bit of a knack for it, it seems, because of that. I would write something and it would get a good response. And so, even in college in my freshman year, I had a writing teacher who recommended me for a job, writing brochures for a bank. So I've done all sorts of writing, whatever it is. I had no idea what I was writing about, but I could put it into words. And so that sort of it became a skill. So I ended up doing that. In fact, I was a freelance writer to pay the bills, which is really weird. I was a freelance writer to pay the bills so I could pursue music.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. It was all upside down, but so, yeah, it worked for me. And rock journalism was this thing, it sort of came together when I was in London, and it's a long story, but I basically knocked on the door of the New Musical Express. Let's just say I was just fired from some other job. It was I knocked on the door in my soaking wet old lamb coat, and they somehow let me in. I don't know why, but they let me in. I was about 20, 21. I was 21. And there was nobody in there, so there was a board editor, managing editor, and he was up for some fun, so he actually agreed to see me. So that's how so I waltzed in, being an American, in England at that time. English were not very aggressive compared to people like us, It's like, so, and he had a ball with, he teased me and all sorts of stuff. And I really just wanted a job in the office, pouring tea, delivering things. I don't even know. I was going to ask about that. But then after teasing me for about 10 minutes, he goes, "So you want to be a writer, huh?" And I said, "Yes." And he told me to go off and review a band, and he'd look at it. So, of course, that's what I did. And I actually had to go back to the States after that. And when I got back, my roommate, I had a roommate named Matthew, who was a drummer. I walked in the door and he goes, "On your bed, page 16. I'm like, "What?" And there it was, the NME, and they had printed it. Wow. So that was it. I was back in that office, and I ended up writing a lot and learning a lot. And then when I moved back to the States, I was a freelancer, and I, wrote for Rolling Stone and Musician and all sorts of people. It was really fun.
I'm sure you met a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people. And you get to go to shows for free.
Hence the Frank Zappa story.
Frank Zappa story. Were you covering him? Are you covering that? Okay.
Yeah, actually that tied into the things we just talked about. Because at that time, and I am dating myself, that's okay. Frank was very, very, very involved in this issue that was about labeling records for there was this thing, the Parents Music Resource.
I remember that.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
First cause?
Enemy number one. And she wanted to put stickers on records, beware of the, I forget what, words are dangerous or whatever. These words are dangerous.
Got you.
Which of course would have meant that, all the major distributors, such as, whether it's Walmart or Target or even big record stores, they were still selling records at that time.
Mm-hmm.
If they couldn't sell the record, that would have a huge impact. Or if they sold fewer, and record companies, chilling effect was the whole thing. And anyway, it was censorship. But Frank was all over it. Very outspoken. And I interviewed him for Playboy magazine, who I was stringing for. And it may have been the scariest interview of my life at first, but it was fascinating. He talked to me for an hour and all about this. And of course, being politically interested, this was, I got it. So he mentioned something. I guess I'm telling this story. I'll try to keep it brief. But he mentioned something about a blacklist when he was doing a speech in Washington. And there was a DJ named Surf Colwell, who still works as a DJ in Washington, who raised his hand and said, "Hey, Frank, I saw a blacklist once." So he mentioned this to me. And me, being, I guess, Steph or whatever I am, I went out after that and I found the blacklist.
Wow.
I managed through the Freedom of Information Act. It took several times, but I found it through a little footnote. I just, because I knew how to research. Because
you're a good researcher, right? It's a good skill.
I mean, I kind of knew how to navigate through this stuff. And I found it and I called up Frank. I called his agent and then she's like, "Frank wants you to call him." He was in New York and he said, "Get over here." So I jumped in a cab, went to the Waldorf, and he was just, I think I was the only journalist he ever liked.
Wow. Well, he trusted you too. And you
just head over here and give me a hug. I mean, he hated journalists.
Wow.
And then he dragged me in. He was doing some interviews and he was like, "This is a real journalist, blah, 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 blah." And when they left, he goes, "What do you want to eat?" And then we had room service and we talked all about the blackness.
Wow. So who created the black? So these were just bands, artists
So basically what it was, it was real. It was a list of songs that were put together, not by the FCC. And that's where people went wrong in trying to find it. But I found that it was an exhibit at a meeting for the Department of the Army.
Oh.
So it was actually, at the time, Spiro Agnew was during the Vietnam War. And they felt that songs that had to do with drugs were making us lose the war because they were influencing, the soldiers who were then getting stoned. Wow. Who knows what? But they made a list of songs and they passed it around and said, "These can't be played." The Department of the Army.
Jeez.
Isn't that something?
It is. And you found it. You found it. I mean, what a wild story. Okay. So I want to know the Ronettes. I want to know, how did you get in with Ronnie? How did this happen?
That's another fun story, really. But, and I call it sort of, this sort of save my life story because, I had been in many bands in New York, a lot of original bands. I had my own band and I even did solo stuff, wrote tons of songs. And it's not like they were bad. They were good. But, it's the music business and nobody gets anywhere, basically. I mean, it's tiny, tiny percentage. So I was frustrated after doing this for a while. And I was very ambitious. So I didn't like this rejection. So I basically stopped. But I had been in this band that was the only other all-girl band I was in. It was called 1-900 Box. And one of our big fans was Joey Ramone. So who was very supportive of like young bands. He lived in the Village. He would always go out and see bands and he loved female musicians. He was super supportive. So he thought our band was the greatest band. I mean, Rolling Stone asked him, like, "What's your favorite new band?" And it was us. So he really liked my guitar playing. So skip ahead a few years. I'd already sort of been frustrated and given it up kind of. And I got a call from Joey Ramone because Joey was working with Ronnie Spector, He was a big fan, and he thought Ronnie should have a young band behind her, a cool band. She had these, pickup musicians who looked bored on stage. And there's Ronnie, super dynamic.
Right.
So I think his idea, he thought of me because he loved my guitar playing.
Mm.
So he calls me out of the blue and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I sort of lied. "Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah." And he told me about this. He said he thought I'd be perfect for it. And I went in and I kind of was nervous. I kind of thought it was an audition.
Mm-hmm.
But, the second I walked in, Ronnie looks at me, she looks me up and down. And I smiled, "Hi, Ronnie," and she goes, "Oh, you've got dimples. I have dimples too." I was like, "Yeah." And she comes and that was it. We were just friends after that.
Wow.
And, it was stuff that I could handle because it wasn't like hard guitar playing. It was mostly strumming and singing backups, which is a lot of backup singing. So that was challenging because I hadn't really done that much. But so I played with Ronnie for like 2 years. It was and I say that it saved my life because it sort of did. I was very bitter about the music business, as I think a lot of people are, because they have these dreams, they have these desires to play. Music is so important, and then they go out and it's just brutal. And most people quit. They're not like me, like keep going, but and then they feel bad their whole lives. I've met a lot of people like that. They somehow feel like they didn't get something, and I had some of that bitterness. And of course I was writing a novel, so it was great. I was doing that anyway. And that was my other love. But when I got back into that band, and the first gig I played with her was Radio City Music Hall.
Wow.
2 nights. And
I just never done that before.
No, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, from nothing to Radio City, and I'm looking out. And the thing was, I was so happy. It was such a gift. That she really loved me on stage. I was so happy on stage. It stood out.
Right.
As having the time of my life. And I didn't care what money it was or whatever. It was irrelevant. And that really restored my spirit. And I'm very thankful to Joey for that. Unfortunately, I'm not here anymore.
Oh.
And so that was really fun. And Ronnie taught me a lot because
what did she teach you?
Well, she's the consummate pro. I mean, you watch Ronnie on stage and it is, she's a master, First of all, her voice was in great shape, even though she was a little older at that point. So it's an amazing voice, and she gave it everything she had every night. Sometimes the gigs were not so great. And for Ronnie to come from where she came from, she'd have to play a small club or something. And the dressing room is behind, a screen, it's hard. It's hard for somebody like that. But she did it and never complained. And she did rock clubs and she did Radio City. So it was all over the place. And I just watched her night after night and realized that, she had stagecraft, for one. She was communicative with the audience. She was smiling at them and they, love this. And she looked great. And whether or not she felt like she wanted to be there, she gave it everything. And that is a big, big lesson if you're going to be on stage and do that. And so, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, she gave it everything, right? Because her being in the Ronettes, they were big, right? They were a significant band. And then she went out on her own. Okay, so then this is her own band. And needed to get those right players with her on the stage. And you were it. I love what you said, that she was a pro no matter what the venue was. She brought that professionalism. And it sounds like she didn't have ego. Like her ego didn't get the best of her, because that can be tricky where you were playing huge venues. You have all the fancy, stuff with your green room and then you go to a different phase in your career and it's not that anymore. But can you do it for the love? And it sounds like she had that love, and you did too. mean, that was what you were, that's why you wanted this so much. And thank you for sharing how it can be really frustrating, that whole industry. I would think it'd probably be similar for actors as well, which also can be just like super intense. I mean, when I lived in New York, and this is all happening in New York, I were meeting a lot of, actors, and they're trying to make it, they're trying to make it on Broadway or in television or what have you. And more don't make it than make it, just the percentage.
Without a doubt. Are you kidding? Like many more don't make it than make it. Exactly. It's a crapshoot, really. Yeah. It is. It's a lot of luck. You need luck, I mean, and it's hard to describe. You could be the most talented person in the world. And of course that helps because people talk about you. But if you don't have luck on your side, nothing can happen. Really nothing. And I saw it a lot. So that's hard for people, because it's their dream.
Right.
If you have and things like acting, or music or art or any kind of art, if you want to be a dancer or, I mean, it's a passion. This is what you dream of, usually since you're little, in a lot of cases. And if you can't make that happen, it can be crushing if you don't have something else. So yeah, it's tough, but
it's tough. But for you, that this situation with Ronnie, it restored your spirit, which is so amazing. It gave you a bit more. It's like you got more runway. Okay, I got these gigs. I got this band. I'm having a good time. So that eventually comes to an end. And then what? Was Lez Zeppelin next, or what did you do from there?
Yeah, I mean, well, I had a kid. That was one thing I did. Yeah. And then there was one more. I have two fantastic boys, but and I managed to do Lez Zeppelin with babies, which is a whole other conversation. I did a podcast once about that. But Lez Zeppelin, yes, that was the next thing, because it simply came out of me. I was living in New York and I just had no band and I wanted to play, I just got itchy, man. I hadn't played in a while. And I thought, if I could play anything, what would I do? Like what would make me happy to just form a band or join a band or something and play. And I'd been listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin. So, I used to think, boy, it would be fun to be, that's the greatest band. Oh my gosh, the guitar playing in that band. So I just kind of took the next step and thought, why don't I get a bunch of girls together and we'll play this music? Just, dumb idea, little idea. It was not any kind of business idea. It was not, I had no idea what a tribute band was. People tried to tell me we were a tribute band, which I still to this day object to, and it's wrong. But I just wanted to play the music, and I wanted to get into Jimmy's thing and learn everything so it would better my playing and it would be super fun. Of course, playing Led Zeppelin is hard. It's not, I mean, I don't care. It's not guys, not girls. It's just hard, period. It is, there's so many dynamic things involved. So I guess I didn't realize what kind of mountain I started to climb. But, once I started climbing it, I was put out the word. Everyone reacted. Oh my God, I want to see that. And I knew that the idea was a good idea. And so I just persisted, and I eventually pieced together this band, and we were all very excited, and we went and, just to do this. And it was a lot of practicing, because one thing I did realize once I realized how formidable a task this was, that as women, we had to be twice as good. Play this music twice as good, or at least better than everyone else. That's a lot. I mean, because nobody can play. I mean, there are a million guy bands out there playing this music, and I'm telling you that they're not playing it the right way. They think they are, but they're not, because they're missing elements that are the essence of what Led Zeppelin is. But but we as women would be judged before people even come in the door.
Right. They're looking for reasons why to cut you down, to say, look at that. That's
And this was 2004. So this is, you know, it's another, you know, it's 2 decades ago.
Right.
I mean, think about it. It's scary.
Yeah. You've been doing this a long time with this band. That's huge.
It's a long time. Yeah. But, you know, at that time, all girl band playing what was considered guy music.
Right. Very masculine in terms of, like that guitar playing is so advanced. It's so advanced.
It's aggressive. And, you know, people looked at Led Zeppelin and they were like, oh, they eat groupies for lunch, and they're misogynistic and, you know, whatever. I didn't give a crap about any of that stuff. The music, whatever they did there, you know, but it was supposed to be guy music and only guys liked it. And here we were, a bunch of girls, right? So it was at that time much more impactful. I would say shocking even. We were well rehearsed. I knew 6 months we rehearsed. I wouldn't let the band out for 6 months. Because I knew that they'd all think it was a joke, especially with a name like Lez Zeppelin.
Right.
And their expectations would be low. And if as girls we were not as good, I would be doing more harm to female musicians than help.
Yeah.
And I really took it seriously. You know, I grew up always with people doubting my guitar skills, you know, whether it was high school or whatever, you know, oh yeah, sure, you're going to play lead, you know. I just grew up that way. It's much better now. It's not, doesn't even compare. But so that's what we did. And we came out of the gate punching, you know, and people were stunned.
Wow.
They were stunned and they wanted to see it. And from the very first gig, we played at the Continental or somewhere in New York, and there was a promoter I knew from years ago. His name was Trigger, and he wore this like Vietnamese hat, wearing the rice patties or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was sort of a curmudgeon, and I played in a million bands, and I knew the guy, and he'd pay you $5 and he'd throw you out the door, you know. And after this show, which was packed, he pulls me outside, goes, come here, Steph, I want to talk to you. Pulls me outside and goes, this is really cool. You want to do a residency here? Never had I experienced that.
Wow.
In any band I was in, and I was in some good bands.
Yeah.
And I went, no. I said, can I play elsewhere in New York? No. I said, sorry, can't do it.
No.
But I knew I was onto something.
You were onto something. Yeah, that was a good indicator. I'm curious, do you have to get permission from Led Zeppelin to play these songs, or no? It's like free material that you can, because you're doing it your way.
Well, what happens is that there are organizations called ASCAP and BMI, which you've probably heard of.
Right.
And they basically handle publishing royalties.
Yes.
For these songs. So, and also mechanical royalties. So every time a song is played, like let's say on the radio or somewhere, the band is supposed to get some sort of royalty of some sort. So I don't know how they do it to this day, but it's the music venues that have to pay a fee to ASCAP and BMI every year or every month. I don't know how
right.
And that takes care of whatever's played in their venue.
Interesting.
I don't know how they parcel it out, but it's really up to the venue. And we played one venue where they were busted because they didn't pay their BMI fee or something. And we were playing a gig, and they knew, because they knew it was Led Zeppelin that was going to be played, they sent an agent or something. Ooh. And they could prove that we were playing the music there, you know. So it was very interesting. It had nothing to do with us, but you can play the music anywhere. The only thing we can't do is record it without giving them royalties. I mean, you can, but we made 3 records, and I bought the licensing rights to all the songs every time.
Got it. Okay, that's really interesting. All right, so that you figured out the formula. It's like you cracked the code when you created this band. You had the idea. You thought it was just some, it wasn't like a business idea. It was just, hey, I think this will be cool and it'll help me grow as a guitarist. And then, boom, you were onto something because Trigger wanted you.
Triggered it, man.
Triggered it, and you go, okay, yeah, no thanks, but no thanks. And so, what's it been like these last 20 years? Like, how have you maintained? You're still together as a band. You're still, you probably, do you have all the same people in the band? You've had some transition. Like, you're obviously a consistent piece, but you've had to manage, team changes and just changes in the world and life. Like, what are some of the things you've learned from this 20-year journey about being in Led Zeppelin?
Wow. Yeah. It's a novel. But no, to answer your first question, it's the guitarist remains the same, as I like to say. But no, there have been several different lineups through the years, and each lineup has had something unique about it.
Right.
And so it's really been an interesting journey just with that, with playing with these women who are very, very accomplished musicians. You have to be. I mean, so that's been amazing. It's not always easy, to make changes. I have definitely learned that in myriad ways. It's hard. It's hard just as the leader to do that. I think if anyone who owns a business, sometimes changes are necessary and you have to do it. Sometimes it happens to you, people quit, or, the changes are not your choice.
Right.
And you somehow have to figure out how to move on, or in some cases not move on. I decided to keep moving on for better or for worse. Right. It's through all of these various things. But it's also hard, if you have something, I suppose in a business context, your audience or your clients or your customers have to get used to changes.
Right.
And that is a whole aspect of having a group that morphs and makes these goes through different cycles. And so there's all of that, and there's how you present it. I mean, there are so many things. Just getting along as a band is near impossible. In most of my experiences, it's been the thing to break up bands, not the music business itself, but just people fighting in bands. I mean, it's just and luckily that has not happened with all the various lineups of Led Zeppelin. I mean, it has been an amazing thing, and I don't know whether it is that women how to talk things out more or be more malleable in certain ways, or maybe there's a little less ego, or it's just a different style.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier, at least in my case, it has been, to navigate. But there were also things that I learned about having to run the business. And I learned some of them the hard way, and eventually decided on this is how the business has to be run, and just made it's not a democracy.
So you're the decision maker, like the main, you've been there the longest. I mean, you get their input, but at the end of the day, you've got to make the call.
Yes, exactly. And it's not like there's no input, and it's not like I just make unilateral decisions regardless. Because it's a real group, we really play with each other on stage. We're not just playing this song,
right? It's
to each other.
You all are connected.
We're digging in, so it's a real relationship. It's a real band,
right?
But yes, because I'm the leader, and because I run the group, I mean, I basically pay for everything.
Right. So you're handling the booking, you're handling, the logistics.
And I basically have to pay everybody, and I have to pay for all the vans and the rehearsals and the gear and the techs and the, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Gas, the hotels.
Yeah, you see it. You see it all, like the numbers. Like there's nowhere to hide.
I'm telling you about it. And it's gotten a lot worse, to be honest with you, because everything is going up.
More expensive, yeah.
But because of that, it's easier. I'm in a position to be able to do it, luckily, at this point, and it's a lot less messy. If we all had to chip in and we all had to do this and we all had to, it's just,
forget
it's a mess.
Right.
Unless you have a manager running it all, and we've had a few managers, but so yes, there were certain things that I learned along the way that I realized this is the best way to run this business.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to hear you talk about that because it's a band, it's music, but it's also a business, and the only way you can keep doing it is when you do run it as a business, because you need to have the resources to be resourced to take care of you and take care of your bandmates, because it's not free to live. You're like, we have costs, and you want to keep making the music, because that's really what this is about. In my sense too, as some of the members have changed through the years, what really has mattered to your fans and your audience is they're here for the music. And then you all are there for the music. There's something about that music, that sound that keeps you coming back for more.
No, absolutely right. I mean, and I think that the key thing, I think that there are many reasons Led Zeppelin took off, and it took off like mad. I mean, I couldn't even, my head was spinning. I couldn't even believe it. Because when something works in the universe, or however you want to define it, it just works. The impediments fall away for the most part. And it was amazing to me to see how you could be in this business with things actually happening and things actually working. But I think that it has a lot to do with what you said. It's the love of what you're doing. I mean, and it shows, and the audience can tell. And, because you're happy up there, and you're happy with each other up there, hopefully. And it makes all the world of difference. If you're in a joyful place doing this, rather than just, I need to, be good, or I need to make money, or I need to, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It just is a very subtle but powerful thing. It also helps you keep on keeping on.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that, because I know there are people listening right now who need to hear that. When you can transcend some of those everyday thoughts of, I want to be really good at this, or is this making any money? Is this going any place? But really move into that joyful place, because the joy is what will sustain you, and your audience can feel that. That's what we all want. I mean, come on. It's like, what do we want? I want to feel joy.
Yeah.
I want to feel joy. And a lot of life, doesn't always feel so joyful. And you look what's going on, you're going, oh my goodness. But if that can be connected to the work that you do and this craft that you have, to feel that joy and to share that joy with your audience, I mean, that's a bond that you can't even put a value on. It's just so extraordinary. And you figured it out, Steph. You figured it out. Like, how incredible.
Joy breeds joy, hopefully, but your audience, without doubt, and I think all audiences, no matter what you're doing, you're in the performing arts or film or whatever, they partially want to escape. In our case, a lot of the people who come to these shows they loved Led Zeppelin when they were kids. They time travel, and they love that. But you're providing something, they're giving you their time. Time is of the essence. I mean, if someone is going to come in for 2 or 3 hours, we've been doing 3-hour shows.
Okay. Wow.
And give you those 3 or 4 hours because you have to get there and all that. That's a lot. That's a lot. It's, and I think that it deserves respect, and it's a communion of sorts, So, I take that really seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. I love to hear you say, I do too. In my work, I'm not playing music, but I feel like especially when I'm leading retreats in person, I've got one happening in the Berkshires later this month. I do a lot of online gatherings, and it's my art. It's my contribution of really bringing together a space for women to come and tell the truth and to talk about their art and their creativity and how they can take it to that next level, or how they can remember that joy if they've lost it. And I take it really seriously because it's our craft. This is our contribution. My Led Zeppelin took it seriously too. You look at those people, and I get so much from artists, whether they be musicians, whether they're actors. Oh my gosh, I just finished watching, I don't know if you saw it, Steph, Adolescence on Netflix. It was filmed in England, right?
I started that. It was started.
Woo!
Yeah.
I watched episode 4 yesterday.
Yeah.
My son was getting his haircut. I was watching it on my phone. And it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. The acting, they did it in one take. You know that? I don't know if you realize why it was so riveting.
But each episode it's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But that was the craft. They went there. It's like, have so much, and you did that when you were preparing. That's why you said, we're 6 months. We're rehearsing. We're not going out there yet, because you wanted to go there. You wanted to get there in your practice so that when you went on stage, you could really do the music justice. And I think that is our opportunity now as artists, and whatever way our art shows up, is to do the work justice, because that's how you tap into the joy, and that's how you share the joy with your audience. It's incredible.
Absolutely. 100%, 1000%. So Jimmy Page actually came to see us play. It took 10 years, but it did happen. He came to see us in London, and, scariest gig of my life, probably. But because, there was the master in the audience, and I am up there doing a bow solo, and he's the guy who invented the bow solo. I mean, you sort of can't go there, but I'd met him before happily, and we got along. So if I had never met him, but he did come to the show, and to spare the whole big story, mm-hmm. he did love it. He loved it. And thank God, mm-hmm. What I would have done if he didn't, I probably would have let it peter out, possibly.
Really?
I don't even know. I don't know what I would have done.
I didn't have
to think about it. But
right.
he came backstage, and he stayed with us for an hour, whatever, mm-hmm. and went on, because this is what he recognized, exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. For him, the essence of what he did with Led Zeppelin mm-hmm. was what we were doing. Mm-hmm. We're not the same.
Right.
But the point is not to be the same.
Right.
Is to pull your own essence out of it. Mm-hmm. And that, because that's where the magic is.
Right.
It's not in just playing it perfectly or skillfully or making the same movements or wearing mm-hmm. the clothes. There are imitators that are amazing. I could not even do it.
That's a tribute band thing that you're not.
Right. But we use the music mm-hmm. to channel our own emotions mm-hmm. while giving it great respect. And that's the greatest respect you can give for the music. And his comment was, that's the way it should be done. That's mm-hmm. the way it should be played. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what you're talking about. And it's all because of that. And mm-hmm. it's hard to define. You just have to practice, as we do. Practice until you can sort of break through that and get to that essence. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. Mm-hmm. Really no end to it.
Right, exactly. And that's the beauty of it. Okay, final question, Steph. This has been amazing. Is there a venue or like a festival or something that you would have yet to play but would love to? Is there something like, oh, that would be rad?
Wow. Gosh. Well, we did play at MSG, but I wouldn't mind playing the main stage, like all by ourselves. But
okay.
I think it's not so much a place. Mm-hmm. I think I'll admit it, my one remaining little fantasy
okay.
is to get on stage and play with Jimmy.
Woo! Ooh, okay.
I mean, I would love to have a moment, even if it's one song,
Yeah.
where we could do the two guitar, because his guitars are so layered on the records.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can only play the one part. We are just four. We do what they did. We don't have six people on stage or whatever to replicate
Mm-hmm.
the record. That's not our thing.
Okay.
So you got to pick one part or an amalgam of his guitar parts. And so in my head, like if I'm playing 10 Years Gone, I can hear the harmony guitars, when I'm I can hear all this stuff, but of course I can't play it all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's my fantasy. So
I
Jimmy,
love
if you're
it.
listening.
Jimmy, call me.
I live in London too. We could practice.
I see it. I'm holding the vision with you. Oh my gosh. That would be a dream.
That's my one remaining little, bucket list thing, I suppose. But no, I just think, we love festivals. It'd be great we're doing some this summer and, much bigger audiences. It's getting to a point where it's really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
So,
would Coachella be ever on your list? Is that a space that you would be like, that would be cool? Coachella?
Oh yeah. Coachella would be great.
I think I see that. I mean, before it was what it is now, like before it became, all the things with the celebs. I took my son, who's now 16. I went to 3 Coachellas, I want to say.
Oh,
I'm proud of that. Yeah, and we took him. He had his headphones on.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, you'll get a kick out of this. We stayed at a super cool hotel. Oh my gosh, I'll blank on it, but it's very hip in Palm Springs. The Parker.
Uh-huh.
And there was, okay, I probably will forget who it was, but he was a lead singer in a band, and my husband was losing his mind, as you know. Even now he's like, oh my God. He goes, well, I should have gone up and just said, could you take a picture of my son? All this stuff. But I would see that for you. I think that would be just fun. It would be fun. It's tons of people. It expose you to some new fans for sure. But I just love that you found this thing that you love, and you were able to do what you've always wanted to do. You just had to sync up your talents with a concept, and it took off. It took off, as you said. It was immediate in the way that it took off. And I mean, you had to get there. You didn't take off immediately in your career. You ebbed and flowed and did this and did that.
So many nights of playing to 30 people by myself, or having a great band playing to nobody, to getting handed $5. Seriously, I was once handed $5 at CBGB's. I was good friends with Hilly, who actually was very supportive of me personally. But $5, it's like
right.
All of that is preparation. All of it. Even, my music journalism, you have no idea how handy that came in, because we were interviewed by big, publications, and I knew how to navigate that because I was on the other side. Right. So all of these things came, and I can write, so I could write press releases, or I could write. I mean, it's everything you are comes into your art. And I think that's the beauty of it. And the thing about this band is that it simply was a desire to play the music because of the love of the music and the love of playing. I had no other agenda.
Right. It was the love.
Start a band and see what we could. I mean, no. I mean, I wanted to start a band for fun. Right. And to indulge myself, but that was it. And I think that there was a big key to that, because it was relaxed. It was, it was just a joyful thing. It wasn't some enterprise. Right.
And what I pick up from that too is, obviously you brought your talent into the room and your love and that joy. You had a nice challenge in that, wow, I'm going to grow because I got to learn all these intricate guitar riffs. And also what's really powerful about this story is that you tapped into an audience that already existed. There was an audience that loves Led Zeppelin, and wow, they get to hear these songs played by an all-women band. And so you didn't have to, because one of the hardest parts in business that you experience, like you go to these shows and there's 30 people, there's no people, it's building the audience. And so for you, the audience existed. They just needed to be introduced to you all playing this music. And so it was these powerful energies coming together to make magic and make
exactly. Very good point. Yes, we did have a built-in audience that we had to tap into, and that is a huge difference.
Yeah. Sure. Well done, Steph. Okay, so where can people find you if they want to check out your shows and you online? Where do you want to take them?
You know, you could probably branch everything out if you just go to lezzeppelin.com. And it's just like Led Zeppelin, as you can see there on the screen.
Yes.
With a Z, and Lez Zeppelin, no space.com. And there's a tour schedule, and there's a little about the group and some photos and some media. You can listen to, we made 3 records, which was super fun. 3 studio albums, believe it or not. And yeah, we're touring a lot, and we do lots of different fun shows. If you're a Zepp fanatic, you'll dig it, because we do things like, we're doing the Earl's Court concert 1975, that set list. We're playing all of Physical Graffiti. I mean, we're the first ones to do that, and now everyone's doing it. I'm sorry. But
you were the OGs. You were the
yeah, but whatever. It's that was one of my dreams. I love that album. It's,
right.
We do these, we jump in and do these crazy things that we then have to study for, but it keeps us on our toes, and it's fun. Yeah. But lezzeppelin.com, we're on Instagram and Facebook and all the rest of it. So
cool. Oh my gosh, everyone check Lez Zeppelin out.
Yeah.
Incredible. I have to come to a show. I'm going to check out your schedule, because I just want to see you all rock up there and be blown away and just feel the energy of your artistry. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we started talking in yoga.
Yes, absolutely. Namaste.
Namaste to you. I look forward to doing our applause cross again. Everybody, let's rock it out. Thanks to Steph, and I will see you all again very soon. Big love. Take care. Keep making your art.